I'll never forget the sound her heels made. That sharp, calculated click 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 across the linoleum as she marched toward my desk like a judge heading to deliver a sentence. Margie Faywright, 32, quietly confident, never missed a deadline, never missed a meeting. I'd spent the last year documenting client relationships, analyzing our outreach trends, and building a centralized client feedback dashboard, something our team had desperately needed for years. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't flashy. But it was everything the senior partners had been asking for. And then came Tasha Levine, my supervisor. Tasha had a PhD in manipulation, a minor in making people feel small, and a gold medal in weaponized praise. One day, she was praising my initiative in team meetings. The next, she acted like I was clutter in her inbox. Still, I kept working. Because the work mattered.
Until that day.
I was finalizing the Q3 data report, the one I'd been perfecting for over a month. My screen was open to the client dashboard. Over 100 client profiles, tagged, color-coded, linked to key project outcomes. It was elegant, thorough, and built from the ground up.
Mine.
I didn't hear her approach until she was standing right behind me. Tasha folded her arms. "What is this?" she said loudly. 23 heads turned. We were in the open concept floor of CoreReach Consulting. No cubicles. No privacy. Just judgment and echoes. It's the new client feedback portal. The one I presented last month. I replied cautiously. Tasha leaned over my shoulder and sneered. "This isn't what leadership wants." I blinked. They said they wanted a centralized interface. They wanted actionable metrics, Margie. Not this digital scrapbook. People were staring now. My coworker Jen gave me a sympathetic glance, but no one spoke. And then she said it. "This entire year of yours? Garbage." She pressed a few keys. My folders disappeared.
Archived.
Deleted.
Gone.
She did it in front of everyone. And walked away. I sat there frozen. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. And then, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. But I did. "Margie Faywright?" the voice said. "Yes. This is Alan Forbes from Whitmore Stratton. We saw the beta version of your dashboard through Jen Tomlinson. We'd love to fly you in for a project lead position. Starting salary $480,000 plus stock options. Are you available for an intro call?" I blinked. I looked at the blank screen in front of me. The ghost of my work still flickered in my mind. And then I smiled. Because I realized something. Tasha thought she'd erase me. But she had no idea. She had just handed me the most elegant revenge imaginable. Studio microphone, if you've ever had a toxic boss treat your work like it meant nothing, this story is for you. Don't forget to subscribe to Karma Encrypted, because sometimes karma doesn't just clap back, it comes with $500,000 and a new title. Subscribe appeal ends here. I didn't walk out of CoreReach that day. I floated. But revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes the most satisfying version is slow, strategic, and silent. Because I didn't just quit. I documented everything. Emails where Tasha had approved the dashboard. Meetings where she praised my initiative. Team chats where she assigned me the project. Even the original pitch, time-stamped in our internal system, with her initials as the reviewer. She had claimed my work wasn't what leadership wanted. But leadership hadn't even seen it yet.
Why?
Because Tasha blocked it from being submitted. I'd CC'd her on the final version 3 weeks ago. She never forwarded it.
She sabotaged me.
Quietly. Systematically. But here's the twist. Remember Jen, my only real friend at the company? She'd shared the prototype with a contact at Whitmore Stratton, a direct competitor. Not because she was trying to help me leave, but because she was proud of my work. She'd wanted their opinion. What we didn't know was that they were scouting, looking to poach real talent. And thanks to Tasha's public humiliation, I suddenly looked very available. That phone call wasn't a coincidence. It was karma.
On speaker.
I didn't accept the job. Not right away. I had a better idea.
Whitmore wanted me. Great.
So I asked them one question. Would you be interested in acquiring CoreReach's biggest client, the one tied directly to my dashboard prototype? Alan paused, then said, let's talk strategy. What happened next started a domino effect. And it began with a coffee meeting, a burner Gmail account, and a project code I created just to bait Tasha into showing her true colors, because I wasn't done yet. If she thought deleting my work was the end of the story, she was about to find out it was just my opening move. After that phone call, I went home, sat in silence for exactly 12 minutes, then opened a blank document. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I strategized. Because if Tasha thought deleting my work was the end of the story, she'd clearly never seen a woman at her breaking point, but with nothing left to lose. The first move was subtle. A new Gmail address, untraceable, clean, and bland. From it, I set myself an email with a subject line that would only mean something to one person in the world. CoreReach Q3 Client Integration Proposal. Final? That was bait. Attached? A dummy file. It looked like a stripped-down version of the dashboard Tasha had deleted, just messy enough to seem half-finished, but professional enough to raise eyebrows. The footer had my name and timestamp. There was a note inside. Still not sure if she's submitting this or not. No reply in 2 weeks. Might loop in someone higher. I sent the email to myself, then forwarded it from my company email to Tasha. That was step 1. Make her paranoid. The next morning, I dressed with purpose. Ivory blouse, navy slacks, modest heels. Calm and confident. The kind of look that screams, HR would love to hear from me. I walked into the office like nothing had happened. And Tasha? She looked nervous. She smiled too hard, said good morning like we hadn't just had a digital execution of my work life 24 hours earlier. I smiled back, sweetly. Then I waited. And sure enough, at 10:07 a.m., I saw her reading the forwarded email. Her expression froze. She minimized her screen. Then she got up and vanished into the glass-walled office she called her lair. Hook. Set. Why did I do it? Because I needed her off balance. I needed her flustered, reactive. If she thought I might still escalate things, she'd try to get ahead of it. Which she did. 2 hours later, she called me in. Margie, I've been thinking, she said, twirling a pen between her fingers. I may have overreacted yesterday. You know how pressure gets to me. This woman had just humiliated me in front of the entire department. Now she was asking me to act like it was a mood swing? I get it, I said, my voice even. No hard feelings. Oh, good. And listen, about that client dashboard, do you still have a version saved anywhere? I blinked slowly. I thought you deleted everything. I did, she said, chuckling nervously. But I think leadership may want to revisit the idea. If you can whip up a cleaner draft by Friday, that'd be great. Bingo. She'd taken the bait. Tasha thought the forwarded email was a whistleblower move, and she was now scrambling to make it look like she supported the project all along. She didn't know I had already begun working with Whitmore behind the scenes. Enter Phase 2. That night, I met with Alan Forbes from Whitmore Stratton. We sat at a boutique rooftop bar, he in a tailored suit, me with a gin and tonic and a folder full of strategy. Alan wasn't just offering me a job anymore. He was offering me leverage. Because guess what? Whitmore Stratton had just acquired Castleridge and Myers, CoreReach's third-largest client. And that meant CoreReach was panicking. Alan had one question. Can you get us a look at CoreReach's internal client retention strategy? I smiled. Yes. But not how you think. Tasha had told me to recreate the dashboard. So I did. Only this time, I added a small internal tagging feature to the prototype. On the surface, it tracked which clients were at risk of churn. But hidden beneath the interface was a metadata log that recorded who accessed the file and when. Every time someone opened the dashboard, it pinged a private log. I called the feature Mirror. Why? Because it would show Tasha something she'd never seen before. Herself. Her decisions. Her contradictions. Her sabotage. Friday arrived. Tasha called a meeting to preview Margie's updated client dashboard before sending it to leadership. The room was quiet. My screen was projected on the wall. I stepped forward and began the presentation, just like I had rehearsed. Over the last 12 months, I compiled feedback from over 100 client interactions, email threads, follow-up calls, NPS surveys. This dashboard cross-references those insights with renewal dates, spending tiers, and satisfaction scores. I clicked to the next slide. Clients tagged as high risk for churn are marked in red. There it was. Castleridge and Myers, bright red. And no one had caught it, because Tasha had blocked it. Now, in front of 5 senior execs, I explained how this client had shown declining satisfaction for 3 quarters. How they'd flagged lack of personalized attention and slow response times in multiple surveys. The executives exchanged looks. Tasha's jaw clenched. "Who was assigned to them?" someone asked. I looked straight at Tasha. "Account manager, Tasha Levine." The meeting ended in silence. But Tasha wasn't done. She called me into her office again. "What the hell are you playing at?" she hissed. "Doing my job," I said calmly. "You think you're going to embarrass me and get away with it?" I stared at her. Then I said, "You deleted my work. Publicly. You humiliated me. What exactly are you hoping I don't get away with?" She went pale. I stood up, adjusted my bag, and walked to the door. "Oh," I added. "By the way, I accepted Whitmore Stratton's offer. I start in 2 weeks." Her mouth dropped open. You can't." "I already did. They acquired Castleridge and Myers last week. It's public. You might want to check your email." I left her office to the sound of panic. But I wasn't done yet. Final phase, detonation. That evening, I uploaded a sanitized case study version of the dashboard to my LinkedIn portfolio with one line. After 12 months of development, my Client Insights dashboard is now in full deployment, integrating cross-platform feedback and retention analytics at scale. It got over 38,000 views in 48 hours. 3 job offers hit my inbox. But the best message came from a former CoreReach client who messaged me privately. "We dropped CoreReach because no one ever listened. Just saw your work. Following now. Let me know if you ever consult." Tasha was called into a performance alignment meeting the next week. A friendly contact in HR told me she tried to throw me under the bus. Claimed I was insubordinate, that I was spreading misinformation about client accounts. Unfortunately for her, I had already forwarded the metadata logs to leadership. And Whitmore's acquisition of Castleridge had exposed every gap she tried to bury. She wasn't fired. Not yet. But she was demoted, stripped of her direct reports, and quietly pushed into strategic operations, the corporate version of exile. And me? I walked into Whitmore Stratton on day 1 with a $40,000 signing bonus and my own office. My dashboard? They rebranded it and licensed it to 3 partner firms, under my name. Tasha deleted my work to erase me. But what she didn't know is that people like me don't vanish. We multiply. And when you underestimate the quiet ones, we'll burn the whole system down with a smile. There's something surreal about walking into a place that sees your value the moment you arrive. No begging for recognition. No bending over backwards to justify your presence. Just your name, on a door, on a card, on a contract, attached to a salary that says, "We see you." Whitmore Stratton wasn't a perfect company, but they were strategic, not petty. They didn't care how likable I was. They cared about performance, vision, and relationships. And my dashboard, the very one Tasha called garbage, was now the centerpiece of a multi-client retention strategy across 3 Fortune 500 partners. The irony? I didn't have to change a single line of code. The only thing I changed was the logo. On my first day, I was introduced to my assistant, Deirdre, a sharp-eyed woman who wasted no time. "We've got onboarding at 10, but Alan wants you to meet the new acquisitions director first." Something about insights into the CoreReach collapse. I raised an eyebrow. "Collapse?" She nodded. "You haven't seen the news?" I hadn't. But one scroll through LinkedIn and there it was. CoreReach under scrutiny after losing major clients in consecutive quarters. The article outlined poor internal communication, ignored client feedback, and ineffective leadership transitions. Tasha's name wasn't mentioned directly, but I recognized every bullet point. It was my former department. My old data. My deleted work, now resurrected as a warning sign to other firms. Later that week, Alan pulled me into a quiet meeting room and shut the door behind him. "Got a favor to ask," he said, sliding a sleek black folder across the table. "We've been eyeing a new account director for our West Coast division. Problem is they worked under Tasha for 2 years. I'd like your honest assessment." I flipped the folder open, and there it was, a familiar name, Mark Benson. Mark had been one of Tasha's favorite yes men. He used to copy her passive-aggressive language in emails, parroting whatever she said and always managing to accidentally leave me off CC threads. He wasn't incompetent, but he was loyal to dysfunction. And in this industry, that's contagious. I looked up.
Pass.
Alan nodded. "That's what I thought. Just wanted your read." That's when I realized I wasn't just a hire. I was a gatekeeper now. By week 3, I'd been invited to sit in on strategy meetings with clients who, months ago, wouldn't even take my calls.
Now they were quoting my dashboard back to me.
"You tagged us red last quarter," one client joked on a call. "Appreciate the wake-up call. We've revamped our onboarding and saw a 6-point satisfaction jump." I laughed, but inside I was stunned. Tasha tried to erase that dashboard, and now it was shaping entire organizations. And that gave me an idea. The conference. Every year, a major consulting summit called ProLink gathered the top firms across the country. It was where alliances were made, poaching happened quietly over wine, and reputations either soared or crumbled. Whitmore Stratton asked me to present a session titled Human-Centered Metrics, the Real ROI of Listening. I said yes, but I had one condition. I wanted to invite a guest panelist. Guess who I chose? Jen, my old coworker, the only one who had backed me when everything fell apart. She was still at CoreReach, but on thin ice after the restructuring. She was burnout, undervalued, and smart as hell. I called her that evening. "Want a way out?" I asked. She hesitated. "Are you serious? I'm offering you a platform, and possibly a lifeline." She said yes. ProLink Day. The ballroom was packed, over 800 attendees, all holding branded notebooks and sipping $12 coffees. When I took the stage, I spotted a familiar figure in the back row. Tasha. Of course. She was now a consultant for a third-tier firm trying to stay relevant. And she had come to watch me speak. I smiled and leaned into the mic. "Last year, I built something that was deleted in front of my entire team. Labeled as garbage. But the truth is, what was really being deleted wasn't data. It was a refusal to see people." The room went still. We measure everything, conversion rates, churn, CSAT. But we often forget the most valuable metric of all, mutual respect. Then I turned to Jen. She's going to walk you through how a culture of silencing ideas nearly cost her company millions, and how one anonymous prototype, quietly shared, changed everything. As Jen spoke, I watched Tasha's face go from pale to purple. She realized she wasn't just being exposed. She was being replaced. After the talk, people lined up to speak to us. 2 VPs offered Jen interviews on the spot.
And me?
A partner from a private equity firm handed me his card. "We'd like to discuss funding your own consulting brand. Something human first, if you're open to it." I looked down at the card, then back at him, and just like that, a seed was planted. That night, I got one more message. From a CoreReach intern I barely remembered. "I was in a room the day Tasha deleted your files. I just watched your talk at ProLink. You inspired me to leave. I start at Whitmore in 2 weeks. Just wanted to say thank you." I stared at the screen, overwhelmed. Not because of the compliment, but because I realized the more she tried to erase me, the more visible I became. And this wasn't just revenge. This was rebirth. You never forget the moment you stop chasing doors and start building your own. For months, I'd been riding the high of poetic justice. From the job offer to the conference stage, every win felt like another brick in the monument I was building from the rubble Tasha left behind. But success, real success, isn't about revenge. It's about ownership. So when that private equity partner slipped me his card at ProLink and said, "We'd like to fund your own firm," I didn't hesitate. I said, "Let's talk Monday." By the time Monday came, I had already sketched the blueprint. Not just for a company, but for a movement. A consulting firm that rejected corporate gaslighting and soulless metrics. One that valued people over politics. One where feedback wasn't filtered through ego. One where no one would ever be called garbage again. The name? Mirror and Flame. Mirror for truth. Flame for transformation. The two things that saved me. Launching a company isn't glamorous. It's legal paperwork, sleepless nights, endless forms, pitch decks, and, ironically, lots of coffee with people who doubted you 6 months ago. But for every doubter, there was a believer. Whitmore Stratton became our first anchor client, licensing our dashboard under my original name, Project Marginalia. Yes, the one Tasha deleted. Jen came on as co-founder. Deirdre, the assistant who once helped me at Whitmore, left to become our chief ops officer. And within 90 days, we had 2 Fortune 500 clients, a staff of 11, 3 interns, and a 2-year advisory board deal with the same equity firm that backed our launch. We didn't climb the ladder. We built a new one. But I hadn't forgotten about Tasha. And she hadn't forgotten me. One afternoon, Jen burst into my office, phone in hand. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, smirking. She handed me the phone. A screenshot. Tasha had applied for a position at one of our partner companies. The firm forwarded her resume to us for a character reference. "Apparently," Jen said, "they noticed the overlap on your timelines. Wanted our read on her leadership style." I stared at her resume. Still the same buzzwords: results-driven, strategic thinker, employee development advocate. I laughed. Then I wrote the response myself. Tasha Levine oversaw projects that often lacked transparency, resisted collaborative feedback, and demonstrated dismissive behavior toward innovative contributions. While she is skilled at presentation, her leadership style was observed to suppress growth in others. Proceed with caution if seeking a team-oriented culture. I signed it. Margie Faywright, founder, Mirror and Flame. We didn't hear back after that. But I didn't need to. Because the goal wasn't to ruin her. It was to make her irrelevant. 3 months into Mirror and Flame's launch, I got invited to keynote a Women in Leadership Summit. The topic? When they delete you, reclaiming power in hostile workplaces. I stepped onto the stage wearing the exact same heels I wore the day Tasha tried to erase me. Only this time, there was no fear in my stride. Just conviction. I started with this. 12 months ago, my supervisor called my work garbage and deleted it in front of 24 coworkers. Today, that work is the core framework of a new consulting firm serving companies who choose empathy over ego. What she destroyed, I rebuilt and made stronger. The audience went silent. Then came the applause. But the best part? At the back of the room, I saw 3 former CoreReach employees. All had left since the restructure. They were standing and clapping. Later that night, I opened an email from another anonymous sender. Subject line: "You probably don't remember me. It was an intern from my 2nd year at CoreReach." She wrote, "You don't know this, but watching you speak up, even once, made me realize I wasn't crazy for feeling invisible. I work in HR now, and I model everything on the way you handled your exit. You didn't set the place on fire. You just walked out with a match and built a lighthouse." That one made me cry, because it reminded me, not all revenge stories end with explosions. Some end with invitations, with platforms, with healing. I haven't spoken to Tasha since that day she tried to erase me. But every time I onboard a new client, every time a young professional tells me our content changed the way they advocate for themselves, every time my dashboard identifies a broken system and forces a company to listen, I hear her voice in my head saying, "This is garbage." And I smile, because if this is garbage, then I'm building an empire out of gold-plated trash. You'd think someone like Tasha would eventually give up. That after being exposed, demoted, and passed over, she'd take the L and move on.
But no.
Tasha didn't fade quietly. She pivoted. After quietly leaving her third-tier consultancy gig, she rebranded herself as a corporate transformation coach. She launched a sleek website, threw buzzwords like agile mentorship and executive harmony around, and started offering workshops under the name Levine Leadership Systems. But the real kicker? She began publicly referencing my work, without naming me. In my years working with high-level client intelligence platforms, I helped pioneer empathy-led dashboards now used by top-tier firms.
Pioneer?
She called it garbage. She deleted it. She tried to erase me. And now she was riding the wave of its success. But it didn't stop there. One afternoon, Deirdre called me into the conference room with an odd look on her face. "You're gonna want to see this," she said, sliding a tablet across the table. There it was. Tasha was scheduled to be a keynote speaker at the upcoming People First Summit, one of the same industry events where I had spoken just 3 months prior. Her talk, from metrics to meaning, rebuilding trust through transparency. I almost laughed. Except it wasn't funny. It was calculated. She was trying to rewrite history. Use my words, my framework, my vision, but spin it like it was hers. That's when I knew. She wasn't desperate to rebuild her career. She was desperate to steal mine. So I made one call. To Aaron Linwood, director of the People First Summit, and an old college connection who now owed me more than one favor after we helped his firm during a PR crisis. He picked up on the second ring. "Margie, you coming to Denver next month?" I smiled. "Wasn't planning to, until I saw your speaker lineup." He sighed. "Tasha." I didn't even need to say yes. She submitted a whole proposal. Claimed she led your original dashboard team. "Would you be open," I said carefully, "to letting me deliver a live case study rebuttal?" Aaron paused, then laughed. "You want to bring the receipts, don't you?" I just smiled. 2 weeks later, I was back on stage. The same room, different crowd. Tasha spoke first, dressed in navy and pearls, voice dripping with artificial empathy. She used phrases like collaborative restoration, vision-based accountability, and my personal favorite. When one of my junior analysts introduced a prototype, I saw the bigger picture and helped shape it into what it is today. My stomach turned. She was trying to gaslight the entire industry. Then it was my turn. The host smiled nervously as I walked up. "Please welcome Margie Faywright, founder of Mirror and Flame, architect of the original project Marginalia system." I turned to the audience. I wasn't planning to speak today. But after hearing the previous presentation, I realized we need to talk about what transparency really means. A ripple moved through the crowd. I clicked to the first slide. A screenshot of my original dashboard timestamped 2 months before Tasha ever requested a meeting about it. Then the next slide. An email, my inbox, dated and backed up, from Tasha herself. "This interface isn't what leadership wants. Consider it deleted." Then another slide. My resignation email, followed by the job offer from Whitmore Stratton. Then the chart showing how Mirror and Flame scaled the platform to 6 clients.
All under my name.
I ended with one line. "Don't mistake silence for absence. And never mistake a deletion for a disappearance." Applause erupted. But the real moment? It happened after the talk. A senior rep from Kinex International, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise tech firm, approached me privately. "We were scheduled to meet with Levine leadership next month," he said. "We're canceling." He handed me his card. "We want a proposal from you instead." That was the moment I knew. Tasha hadn't just failed to erase me. She'd made me louder. Her final move wasn't bold. It was desperate. A last-ditch grab at borrowed credit and repackaged reputation.
But mine?
Mine was devastating because it was built on truth. Not rage. Not slander. Just facts. And timing. Back at the hotel, I got one more notification. A LinkedIn post from Tasha's company. Levine Leadership Systems is taking a pause to restructure and refocus. Translation? Her reputation was done. And I didn't need to lift a finger to bury it. All I had to do was stand in the light and let her lies burn in it. I once believed revenge meant proving someone wrong. Now I know The best revenge is making their name irrelevant until it's used as a warning. It's been a full year since Tasha hovered over my desk, called my life's work garbage, and hit delete like she was swatting a fly. A full year since she tried to reduce me to nothing with one click. Funny thing is, I still see her face. But not where she expected. Not at summits. Not on panels. Not even on LinkedIn anymore. Tasha Levine is now a case study. A digital slide. A cautionary tale in every Mirror and Flame leadership development course. Her name appears next to phrases like ego-driven sabotage, weaponized authority, suppressive leadership models. I didn't set out to destroy her legacy, but in the process of building my own, hers became a lesson in everything leaders shouldn't be. It started when one of our clients, a fintech startup with rapid scaling issues, asked me to build a leadership workshop around how to retain innovation without killing morale. So I created a new curriculum module, The Invisible Cost of Insecurity, how one supervisor lost her entire team. I anonymized the details, the dashboard, the deletion, the public humiliation. But to those who knew the space, the message was clear.
Someone always asked,
Did this really happen? And I always said,
yes.
And the person who is deleted now owns the company that trains yours. That workshop went viral, internally, at first. Then companies began asking for external seminars. By the time we reached our first anniversary, Mirror and Flame had grown beyond consulting. We were a training hub, a culture transformer. I never had to say Tasha's name aloud, but her actions haunted conference rooms and HR departments from coast to coast. And not because I slandered her, but because she gave me the material. One morning, I opened my inbox to find a message from a university professor. She taught organizational leadership at a top-tier business school. We're using your framework in our ethics course. Would you consider guest lecturing? Your approach to accountability without revenge is the most grounded I've seen. I stared at that line for a long time. Accountability without revenge. Because that's what this became, didn't it? Not revenge in the classic sense. Not screaming matches or slashed tires or public meltdowns. But a slow, searing, professional reckoning, where the one who tried to delete me got turned into an example. I agreed to the lecture. And the night before, I rewrote the closing slide. No charts. No diagrams. Just a black background and a single quote. Do not erase what you cannot replace. Unknown. And below it, in smaller font, sometimes the person you're silencing becomes the voice that drowns out your legacy. That day, as I stood in front of 83 students, future CEOs, founders, HR heads, I told them the truth. I didn't mention her name, but I described her perfectly. And I watched their faces shift from smug amusement to silent attention. Because everyone in that room had met a Tasha. Maybe they worked under one. Maybe they were one. Either way, they left knowing. Deleting someone's voice doesn't protect your power. It exposes your weakness. Afterward, a student came up to me, young, bright-eyed, maybe 22. She said, "My last internship supervisor told me not to speak up in meetings. Said I hadn't earned the right yet." I thought that was normal. I looked her in the eye.
No.
That's conditioning. She nodded slowly, then asked, "How do you know when you've won?" I smiled. When the person who tried to erase you has to watch you write the rulebook. Tasha's still out there. Occasionally, I hear whispers. She applied to a mid-sized firm last fall. Someone forwarded me her name on a candidate list. I didn't even respond, because at this point, she's not even worth a no. As for me, I teach, I lead, I build. And every time someone calls our firm innovative or says our programs changed their culture, I think back to that day, the sting of humiliation, the hollow laughter of coworkers, the empty silence after she clicked delete. And I thank her, because she didn't just erase my work. She freed me to build something she could never touch. A legacy. So no, I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I didn't burn it all down. I rebuilt. Brighter. Louder. Unignorable. And now, she's a slide in my workshop. A line in my lecture. A footnote in a story that only ends one way. The woman she tried to erase became the voice that rewrote the entire system.